Let's move on now to our next panel discussion. We're going to bring the chairs to the stage. It's all about technology, this one, and how experts believe that technology has got the potential to alter how people learn significantly. And so the topic is from pencils to iPads and refinement in instructional technology. So this is going to be another really interesting panel discussion for us this morning, ladies and gentlemen. And to moderate this panel, please could we put our hands together as we welcome to the stage Onyekachi Ginger, I do hope I pronounced that correctly, a CEO and co-founder Edutech Global. Round of applause, everyone.
So good morning, everyone. This is Mariko. I'm in charge of Executive Managing Director of Amic International Inc. I was born and raised in Japan, and I am currently based in Singapore, providing English language acquisition coaching services for non-native English speakers. Today, I'm very excited to be here as the moderator of the panel discussion. The topic is From Pencils to iPads, Refinement in Instructional Technology. So before we get started, I'd like to ask you a simple question. How many of you are using the iPad as a learning tool? Okay, thank you. So what about 5 years ago? How many of you have already started to use iPad? Oh, still we have. So how about 10 years ago? Almost nobody, right? Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I guess we did have iPad as a learning tool, but it was not common at all 10 years ago. So, So the past 10 years, or this several years, the usage of the iPad or this kind of digital tools have significantly changed. The capability or the advantages of the capability that we can gain, and the quality of the benefits we can gain has already changed. The range of benefits gained by switching from traditional methods to the iPad has changed dramatically over the past several years. The iPad is now an extremely important educational tool for my business. And as my previous career, I also used to work as a learning and development specialist in the corporate world for a decade. Again, the educational role played by the iPad has been growing continuously throughout the years since then. Now, when we discuss instructional technology, it's not limited to the iPad. It's not about only iPads, smartphones, or learning apps. It also covers the learning structure. As we have seen in the past few days during this conference, instructional technology has the great potential to change the way education is delivered, the way it is structured, and even the way we learn. Therefore, in today's panel discussion, we'd like to discuss the benefits brought by technology as well as the best practices during this digital transformation period, and also the possibilities for the future. Now, I'd like to welcome our amazing panelists. Please welcome them with warm applause. So first, Ginger, the CEO and co-founder of Edutech Global. And Hannah, the director and co-founder of Media Alliance Gaming Studio. And last but not least, Chryso, the co-founder and CEO of Digipro Education. Thank you so much, and I'd like to move on to the seat as well. Right. So, could you please give us a quick self-introduction so that everyone can see each of your backgrounds and the area of specialization? So, Hannah, would you like to start first?
So I'm Hannah Samira. I'm CEO and co-founder of Media Alliance Gaming Studios. My company develops software that gamifies the learning process for schools and also for government institutions, training programs and stuff like that. And my company wouldn't be possible without technology like the iPad.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Onyekachi Ginger-Eke, known as Ginger, easier to pronounce. So I lead a business in education technology. You know, we're focused on democratizing education in Africa and emerging markets through technology. We'll be speaking about instruction technology and how we see it and what is my everyday reality, you know, when it comes to enhancing education with technology. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Chryso Charalambous. I'm the CEO of Digipro Education and founder of the Financial Research Institute. Over the past 32 years, we have been in the development of technology-enhanced learning solutions that engage and inspires young learners from age of 5 until age of 12, 13 years of age in learning about the 21st century skills, the skills about computing, about digital literacy, about integrating streams into the learning process, storytelling, learning how to be creative, how to be communicative, and how to be happy. Because if you ask a child what you want to be in life, he will tell you, I want to be happy.
Great, thank you. We have amazing specialists here today. So we'd like to move on to our first question. What do you understand to be instructional technology? As I mentioned, it is not only about the iPad or digital tools or that just device. It also covers much more than that. So what do you think? Who'd you like? Yeah, so Hannah.
So my company, like I said, uses games to make learning fun. So I think that that instructional technology is best used when we make it fun. And that's what my company does. I developed something called the HANA SES simulator. So we basically are able to stay true to historic narratives and teach history, but also allow students to test historical what-ifs. What would have happened if leaders would have chose this or that. And I think that that really games are and bringing fun back into learning is the future of instructional technology.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so for me, the way I see it and the way my company sees it is, just like Mariko said, it's beyond just using iPads, you know, computers to learn. This was what most people thought about during COVID, so you could have people in classes just on Zoom or WhatsApp or any live platform, but it was beyond that. You know, it's the design, the development, the management, the evaluation, the utilization of resources and the processes of learning is an end-to-end. And that's how we look at it in Edutech Global. How do we end-to-end manage the learning process with technology? I'm also going to be looking at it today from different perspective, mode of delivery. Regardless of whether it's face-to-face, regardless of whether it's distance learning, what's the role of technology? How has instruction changed over time? Also, from the perspective of, is it the tutor? Is it the student? What kind of experience can create the most impact? And of course, how did we get here? Through the great culture shift, through the the pace at which technology is moving in other industries and how it affects education. Thanks.
Okay, in our company, of course, I agree with the prestigious colleagues here. It's all about pedagogy first. If you do have a well-trained teacher and a good pedagogy structure and definitely an excellent mode of delivery that is flexible and agile and personalized according to student needs, is the most important framework. And then what technology can dress up all this learning environment, it's a different matter. Technology, of course, helps. My first degree is in computer science. I'm an advocate of technology. I am first a technologist, and then I did my pedagogy and teaching sort of academic background. But if the academia if the good pedagogy and the teacher is not there, then, and if you do not get the children interested, then education is just a waste of time. Even if you have butterflies flying in the room, I mean that the teacher should enable the learning process. A good teacher should facilitate and love the children, and all of the learning engineering aspect should come next and after, definitely. This is what we believe.
Thank you so much. I totally agree with you that. So my second question would be, I'd like to ask you insight even deeper, and I'd like to ask you, what has been the biggest impact made by instructional technology tools in your business or in other areas?
Yeah, I think that reframing failure as a learning process is one of the biggest things I've seen technology do in schools, at least the technology that my company creates. I remember one of my testers once told me, like, Hannah, sometimes when I'm playing some of the, let's say, losing branches, I don't feel like, I don't feel defeated. I feel like I enjoy it actually. It's a learning process. So I think that's something really important today in school, to teach risk-taking, and we can teach risk-taking by reframing failure as something that's not bad, but part of the learning process. And teachers should exemplify that themselves. And I think that the modern tools that we have today facilitate that.
Right. Oh, okay. So I'll take that next. I'll share a story. So, we're just told about storytelling. So, in Africa, we have 1.4 billion people. About 70% are youth. And what drives Africans is education. Now, we don't have up to 2,000 universities across Africa. And in Nigeria, for instance, about 2 million people take the exam to get into higher institution, but only about 25% can get in. So you have people taking that exam year after year. And most of the reason why there's that entry barrier is infrastructure. So I'll be looking at it from distance learning. Like I said, I'll be looking at it regardless of whether it's face-to-face or distance learning. So for this question, I'll be looking at it from distance learning. So the impact we've created, which is at the base of the passion we have for education, is giving access to thousands of Africans to be able to go to school, ensuring that people that didn't have that opportunity can go to Ivy League schools in Nigeria. So we have testimonies from students who said, I have the ability to pause my teacher and come back and listen again and listen again. I have the opportunity to collaborate with different people because I have online library. I have other people somewhere in some remote place or some other place using technology to learn. I'm in different communities. So these are the impacts we've seen, giving access to education, even return on investment for the schools. So the schools are not able to generate money, and we have to talk about money at any point in time. But we've smashed the walls of the classroom with technology, and this has enabled institutions to generate more investment, more money, return on investment. So I see the impact from different people, from the school, from the tutor, from the student. The tutors have been able to begin to use digital tools that ordinarily they wouldn't have been using years before. Thank you.
For us, actually, the biggest impact during our 32 year of existence was to get the teachers to use technology constructively in the classroom, teach with technology, teach for technology, and face the children who are learning at much faster paces as the children, the teachers are teaching, especially when you need to teach children about algorithms, about computational thinking, about expert thinking practices, and use technology. Children are embracing these technologies faster. Within 4 seconds, they know if something is relevant to them or not. So they move on to the next one. And teachers, actually, who were never taught in this way, we were all taught in the traditional industrial age education, not the knowledge societies of today, find it very difficult to use technology creatively in the classroom and add value to teaching and learning, and face those young generations that are now embracing it so nicely. And as other people here today said, of course, they are the digital natives. Now they are the children of the millennials already, so we need to face them creatively.
Thank you. Yeah, we can see so much potential of the instructional technology. And as for my business, I also use the iPad for the learning tools to for the English language acquisition. And one of the things that I was very impressed these days is AI's possibilities for the learning. So for example, if I speak something to the iPad or smartphones, these days AIs can transcribe what I said. So which means we don't have to dictate what the students or my clients say. It will be done automatically. And also, the AIs can have the scale like native speakers. So if the AI cannot transcribe correctly, that means that there is a room for improvement in their pronunciation. And also we can also have the minutes of the conference, for example. They don't have to be able to listen everything. They can rely on that kind of technology tools as a learning tools as well. It was one of the inspirational change in my field. So so I would like to move on to the next topic, because Chryso brought up a very good point, because there are always pros and cons when we try to implement new technologies or new tools. As you said, some teachers find it difficult to make it.
Most of the teachers, at least during the 90s and early 2000s, they were resisting, actually. They didn't want to do it. Actually, teachers start to embrace tool mixture within their instruction after COVID.
Right, so COVID was the biggest.
It was a facilitator, yes, especially for the online learning.
Right, thank you. Yeah, COVID.
In schools.
COVID made the online training even more something like common. So yeah, so I would like to ask you, all of you, what are the challenges you see when you implement these technology tools?
Well, certainly, like it has been said here, it was very difficult to get teachers sometimes to adopt some of the new technologies. However, COVID really helped my company too, because it was very difficult during development. We had a global team, people all over the world having to collaborate. But when it came time to sell products, it's like, oh yeah, we definitely need that, because it was obvious. But I think another challenge is like knowing how to properly integrate it with curriculum, because I don't think anyone here would say like throw out pencils or some of the traditional methods. There's also a lot of studies have shown that, for example, students who take notes with pencils retain the information a lot better. The information recall is better. They do better on tests. So there's definitely something to be said for traditional methods. But we have to find the right blend, and there's definitely a lot of benefits, like has been said here, from new technology such as iPads. So a challenge is getting instructors to adopt the new technology, but also not throwing out the old methods and knowing how to integrate it properly in the classroom.
Right. So for us, you know, when we started 10 years ago, our first focus was how do we democratize domestic universities for Africans? And then lately it's been how do we give them access to global education now that we've stabilized gaining access to the domestic universities. So at that time, adoption was very low. In fact, it took us like 3-4 years to crack the regulatory hurdle in Nigeria specifically. In fact, we launched the first online distance learning with the first university that got the license. So it took 3-4 years to get that, even from the regulators, get the school, work with the school, to meet all the requirements. And then we went live after 4. So you can imagine running a business for 4 years, just working to crack regulation. So that was the major issue we had. COVID happened, you know, and things have changed. Now we have universities adopting a certain percentage of face-to-face class, you know, lessons to be actually online. So a hybrid mode of delivery is coming into place. Another problem is, I mean, in developing countries, cost of accessing online, you know, technology. You can have offline, but the cost of access, I mean, we can stay in Dubai and 24 hours we're online, but in developing countries, that's a huge problem, you know, having access to internet 24/7, also being able to afford it. That's also another challenge. So you may deploy, and then the students can't use it. So you get to try to develop your platform to be such that it either it has low usage, or you actually let your platform be free from that cost and taking the cost as the company. So these are the challenges we see. Thank you.
Okay. Again, as I said before, the challenges are tremendous. We are in a changing world. We are now moving away from the traditional educational systems of a factory-based education. Now we are in a more open society where education is everywhere. We learn 24/7, not only in schools. Learning should continue and be everywhere and for lifelong. This is the essence of training and retraining people. Companies stay viable and relevant once they change, and they have people who drive through and change. During COVID and right after COVID, we had examples in factories in France that used to do machines for the airplanes, parts, and then they started building masks and doing other things. So this is what is going to happen. We need to teach our children to be agile, to be flexible, to be forward thinkers, and to be ready to change, because change is the only constant factor in our lives. And this is what we need to teach our children to be.
Right, thank you. Yeah, so it seems like apparently there are several challenges when it comes to the implementation. One is the structural issues, like technical issues, budget problems, as well as the mind block of the teachers or the educators. And this reminds me of the time when I worked as a learning and development specialist in the company, because at the time, the company I worked also implement the iPad to the stores. I used to work in the global fashion brand, and each of the stores started to use the iPad as a learning tool for their employees. But there were huge challenges and problems there, like all of you said. For example, some conservative people didn't like to study online. They prefer to use more traditional tools like pencils or notebooks or paper-based materials. So some of them said it's not easy for them to get concentrated on when they use screen, for example, or sometimes they cannot use the internet because of the technical issues, because some of the stores have the really weak connection. Not anymore, I hope, but it was, I guess, 5 or 4 years ago. But yeah, the other time they had technical issues as well. Yeah, so, and also, yeah, as Ginger said, it cost a lot. So even though we made a huge investment at the beginning, most employees were really reluctant to use that kind of tools, which was big problems for the management team as well, and it was also one of the problems as well. So I'd like to ask, probably these problems we have already discussed would be something that some of the participants today would also face in the near future. So I'd like to ask you how did you overcome those challenges? So
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
the question is, how did you overcome the challenges when for the implementation of the technology tools?
A lot of training, making tutorials like very user-friendly in my case. I spent a lot of time developing my tutorial. I tested it on different generations. I used my dad to test it, who hates technology, so I knew if I can get him to use it, then anyone can use it. I use, with gaming, you try to use people's core drives to make a game interesting, because a game can be boring, but what drives people to play is tapping into their core drives. Scarcity, wanting to be a part of something, rewards. So I would use stuff like that, which can be used very effectively with digital technology to get people to just do like the tutorial and suck them in. And I think that with technology, it's easier to suck people in because things are faster moving. You can make beautiful graphics. So that's how I did it.
Right. So for us, we have how-to videos, embedded in the platforms. We also spend time, especially when we have long-term relationships with institutions. They have tutors go, they have tutors come in. So we do train the trainer for some tutors, frequently, and then actual direct training to the tutors just to make sure that they're keeping up with the upgrade on the system or understanding if they're coming from somewhere they haven't used it before, or they have used it before but need to understand how these platforms work. That's why we do these trainings. And of course, we have a 24/7 help desks open to students, open to tutors that helps them, work through it. But I think your other question was about the internet issues, if I heard you right. Yeah, so some of the initiatives we have is working with telcos to ensure that we can have some plans that enables the student to pay zero, whenever they're on the platform. As far as they're on the platform, then they don't get to pay anything. All that we work back into our cost. So those are some of the ways we have creatively taken care of that.
Okay. Actually, we have been for 32 years now trying to overcome the problem of using technologies in the classroom. At first, we used a lot of games. Children used to come to our classes because there were computers there back in the 90s, and they got to play with games. Then I realized that, okay, this is a nice attraction for children. Then we had the internet. Not all of them had internet in their homes. They could have computers, but not internet. So we attract them by using the internet in the classes and trying to teach them to find the right information from the abundance of links and types of information, not only in text, but also trying to find information in videos and graphs. And by the start of the 2000s, even a little bit before, we start to say, okay, we should develop a systemic solution that teachers and students alike can have fun, can follow in a good systemic way. You know, the lessons are going to be age appropriate, the projects could be cross-curricular, age appropriate, but also school-wide projects that the teachers can follow, because overcoming a problem of having the teacher teach in today's classrooms, the teachers can, of course, find a lot of information here and there and everywhere, but they still need to spend lots and lots of time to make learning relevant and children to stay in class and actually having value from this learning. So what we have done over the past 25 years, and we are still doing, it's never-ending story, developing good quality content that is sequential, that is systemic, that has a lot of assessment not only of hard skills, but also of soft skills. So not only the child's ability to understand, comprehend, and use, which is the lower level thinking skills, but the child's ability to share, the child's ability to analyze, to create new knowledge, to be creative, to be innovative. But we can be innovative, and we need to add value with our innovation. So those are the lessons that we try to supply the teacher community, either virtually or face-to-face, with good solutions that are valued for them, and they don't have to have 4 or 5 hours preparing for a lesson, but only use fewer hours to prepare and still be great teachers. This is how we did it. By developing FunEcole, I have to say it. Thank you.
Thank you. So the adequate information providing is the crucial thing to get more access to everyone. Maybe it's like the tutorial or the trainers or the teaching the teachers. So to be knowledgeable about the technology, to enhance the literacy of the educators or teachers themselves would be really crucial points to solve the problems, you mean?
Yes, it's not like enforcing teachers to do something or enforcing children. Nowadays, you cannot do that. Is inspire them to be imaginative, to find and solve their own problems. So making it all relevant, I think, is the clue. And when I say to teachers, when we teach teachers, I said to them, make learning relevant and fun, and leave the rest to the children to do, because they are the ones who should be in the driver's seats, not the teachers, not anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. I found in my experience that the best was to let teachers just give it to the kids. And when teachers would see that the kids are motivated to learn through a given platform or system, they see that their job's a lot easier too. So I was always encouraging teachers to help me test, take a beta version, give me feedback. And when teachers see that actually some of these technologies can make their lives easier and facilitate the teaching process, it helps them adopt these technologies.
Yes, same here. Because teachers in Africa are beginning to use digital tools, they're seeing the personal development, So there's a lot of, they're being motivated, really, to use digital tools. And we know that the students are far ahead of teachers when it comes to digital tools.
Oh,
so
that is definitely.
Yes.
And they get bored of these technologies very easily, so they want more and more.
Exactly. So I think it's a win-win situation, yes.
Right, thank you. So Now I'd like to ask you, so now we have covered the challenges or the best practices of the technologies, and we will have more in the future. So I'd like to ask you, what is the future of the instructional technology? What do you see in the technology, instructional technology fields? Or what would you like to achieve or accomplish with the technology?
Well, the sky is the limit with technology. That's the future. So it depends on where we take it. I think, like I said before, we have to really see how we integrate it with traditional methods, because in the end of the day, we are human. So there's certain things like writing with a pencil helps us remember the information better. The study I was referring to by Princeton University found that students who would take notes with a pencil would say things more in their own words, whereas if they were facilitated with typing, they were just parroting what the professor was saying. So we have to identify, like, what is it about the traditional methods that sometimes are better, and try to use that in technology. Like, for example, if I'm creating a platform and I'm aware of that, making it such a way where students can't just parrot off what a professor is saying, forcing them to do the thinking. Which those types of systems can be built with technology, but they can only be built if we're aware of the problems and the advantages and disadvantages. And I think that we're never going to be able to throw out traditional methods of learning too. So it's the proper integration.
I agree. We can't throw away. I mean, I still have my paper with me. So we're not going to throw away the traditional way of learning. However, within Edutech Global and within the industry, this is the future I see. I see for face-to-face learning, probably smart decks, no more just the ordinary decks, a lot, virtual, people don't have to do remote learning and then have to go to school face-to-face to do their labs. It's going to be a lot of virtual environment. I see gamification coming a lot because I had to pull out my 3-year-old at that time from school because the Zoom wasn't working in their school. So I said, you know what, if you had a game, in your school, you would have learned more. I see subscription-based learning. One of the impact of using technology for distance learning is it reduces cost for the student. So study loans are, impacted positively. To improve that even better, subscription-based learning, is what I see in the future. And a whole lot. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity in the edtech space. So that's how I see it.
Okay, I believe in harmony. I believe in the right blend in the classroom. And I believe that the teacher should always listen to what the children want, need, or desire, and use the right blend accordingly. It's not a recipe that fits all. We are learning, we are dealing with individual students, we are dealing with individual children, so we need to abide by their needs and dance to their tunes. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with that. Yeah. So even if the technology has been evolved even further, I think nothing can be automated 100% in the educational field. I guess it's a really convenient tools to make it easier or make it more fun to learn. But there should be something that soft skills will be necessary. I mean, it's easier, for example, to track the training record, a learning record, if we use the technology tools. But if somebody is not catching up what they are supposed to do, it's not always, we cannot see the fact with the data.
Yeah, something else I didn't speak about is I see an AI-driven future where, I mean, when I said I got my little child out of school, because for me, the question was, what does he need to learn? He's probably going to be counting 1 to 10 for how many years? So it was, what exactly does he need to learn? Now, I had to do that analysis myself. But if there's, there's an AI-driven platform that simulates or, based on my talents, based on different things, because this little boy could do a lot of things. and just wasn't understanding what the teacher was saying online, because a lot of children will be making noise, they're all unmuted, you know, and so an AI-driven platform that, you know, identifies what I need to learn, based on what I want to do, you know, that's very key. Because some of us just go through the traditional learning, and that's why we have a challenge in online learning, assessment. My big question is always, what exactly are we assessing? Thanks.
Actually, for me and the children, it doesn't matter what they know or what we teach them to learn, but it matters what they do if they don't know. Do they surrender? Do they find answers? Do they pinpoint on other children or teachers that can help them? What is their mentality? This is what we need to develop mostly, not their knowledge. Google is the owner of knowledge, we all know that for years, but their attitudes, their habits of mind, and what they do when they want to collaborate and create and solve problems with others and all of that.
Yeah, that kind of ties into what I was saying about reframing failure. Like, what do children do when they feel like they failed in class or they need help? And that, I think, is actually digital solutions are able to really improve that today. Because you have a teacher with like 30 students. With the digital solutions, the students can get feedback right away. Through a game, they can feel like, oh, maybe I went down the wrong path, I got the wrong answer, but you can do it in such a way where it's a learning experience, and they don't maybe feel bad about the failure, but they look at it as a learning experience and grow through it. So I think in this area of reframing failure, that digital solutions are excellent and really helping the classroom.
Okay, thank you. So I guess it's time to ask a question from the audience. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, panelists. It's a good, really thoughtful the panels. So and I'm working at the university, and also I have a daughter, and so sometimes I have a question to me also. That, for example, when I communicate with my daughter and also her friends, and also even for my young researchers in the university, so sometimes they have a question in the nature and also the textbook, and also usually we'd like to communicate with them. So what is are you thinking about that? But sometimes, not sometimes. Nowadays it's very frequent. So they told me, okay, so I will ask to teacher Google, such like that. Sometimes I'd like to communicate with them more deeply, but they have already solutions, such kind of that. So you said the brain is the very important. However, so sometimes, so how to communicate with them for the future? So now question to me. So if you have some comments to the future communications by using such kinds of the digital infrastructure for as education to them. So if you have some comments or such like to communicate to the younger generation.
If I hear you correctly, so how do you communicate with your children in this age?
Yeah, because they have solution to the ask to the digital content.
Okay, so they know more than us. So how do we stay on top, if that's what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah, true.
Okay, which is why we spoke about tutors learning as well. It involves parents as well. There's a later session today on teacher-parent relationship and how it impacts students. Fortunately, I'm on that panel. So I have children of different generation. I have from 6 to 22. And it's different communicating with them. So I have the 6-year-old going on 10 because what he knows sometimes floors the 22-year-old who probably learned it in school. But this 6-year-old is learning it on the go and feels sometimes, he says, we're lame because we don't understand it. So what we do is stay ahead, learn, so that we can also communicate at that level. So we don't say, oh, this is not my generation. I don't need to be communicating at this level. You need to also stay at their pace, know what they're doing, learn with them, because that 6-year-old cannot finish his course end to end on a one day without me getting involved. So yes, they have more answers, but we can lead them. They know where they're going to. They just need someone to lead them, and we need to be informed to be able to lead them on that journey. I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, tripod.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi. Are you able to hear me? Yeah, now you're able to hear me probably. So I'm a professor in augmented and virtual reality for 20 years, and I'm now looking into use of virtual reality and AR techniques for education. And what I would like to know from you is, because I come from a purely research area into this field, and you are the ones using what we do at the end of the day, how open is the education sector and the classrooms to these techniques, and how familiar do you think the education sector is to benefits as well as challenges that can come with these technologies?
You mean the augmented reality technologies?
Augmented reality technologies and virtual reality technologies.
Okay. I think that everywhere in the world at the moment, children are very excited and students with augmented reality, and also teachers, if anything, is the first thing that they are using augmented reality, because it's a 3D learning, sort of speak, that gives context and content to the children's ability to learn. Imagine to have a 3D heart, to dismantle this heart and see what is inside and look at the heart beating. So it's these are very, very useful tools in technology, and actually is the first tools that we teach teachers to use, alongside with everything else, of course. So if you are developing augmented reality apps, we would like to know more about them, and so that we can use them in the classrooms.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just say that I'm kind of on both sides of the coin there, because I'm a software developer, and it was always a challenge for me to get schools. I was on the marketing side too, marketing my products, and getting schools to see, teachers and instructors to see the benefits of my products and to be able to break through the bureaucracy to get it adopted. But I think that Generation Z has grown up with